Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Tuesday, May 19th, 2015 to order. It's great to be back. I was away for a couple of weeks on a vacation, and great to be here. And I do appreciate Councillor Kersey, who's not with us this evening, but for chairing that meeting. So thank you for that. We will begin with the singing of the national anthem, and I would ask all who are able to rise. And Councillor Papp, if you could lead us, thank you.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy songs command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Ladies and gentlemen, first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the agenda for the May 19th, 2015 regular meeting of council be adopted. Councillor Durley has indicated there's a couple of items to add. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I request moving some items into a place closer to the front of the agenda, considering the people that are here in consideration, that being the liability issue of 13.2.2 at Peace Park, moving it up to business arising at Article 9 of the agenda. Also, the letter we received from the Ban Shell Committee to move forward. And under closed session, there was a third issue that was requested by the CAO. If we can add that to the agenda under the closed session 20.1.
Okay, thank you. So considering 13.2.2 and 14.1 under business arising number 9, and adding that additional item under the closed session.
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Papp? I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment carries. Thank you. Councillor Ribiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question that I will be asking when under business arising, under number 9. It has to do with item 1014 in the regular council meetings that we will be approving, presumably, and that has to do with the ban shell as well, so it's probably timely.
Okay, thank you. Does that I don't understand how that would require an amendment necessarily.
I don't know that it requires an amendment, but I've been advised by excellent authority that this is a good idea to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
He's asking for an item to be added to business arising.
Oh, I see. And that item is what? What is the item that you're asking to add?
There's a question with regard to item 1014 in the regular council meetings having to do with Fontil ban shell financials.
Okay, you lost me on 10.9.
1014. 1014.
I don't have that on the agenda. Which agenda item is it?
It's in the regular council meetings that we are presumably going to approve.
Oh, I see.
I would hope so.
If we don't,
Really,
then
it's
I
really
will
in the
answer
minutes
question.
under 8.1, is that correct?
Yes.
That's where I got confused. Okay, thank
So
you.
he wants it under 9.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Papp? Call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. Any other changes to the agenda? Thank you. There being none, I'm going to call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Thank you. We'll now move to disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is any conflicts of interest. Do any members have any conflicts they need to disclose? Councillor Papp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under staff reports, CCS Group Consulting, I have actually worked with this group before, so I'll have to excuse myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other conflicts of interest? Can that be so noted? Now we move to hearing of presentations, delegations, and the first is from the Font Hill Firefighters Association, and we have with us Les Hildebrand and Ron Gilbert. Just want to come forward to the podium. John, could you
Mayor and
accompany me?
members of council, once again, on May the 2nd, we had our annual voluntary road tour, and I'd like to thank the residents and the visitors of Pelham for their extreme generosity, and to that extent, we'd like to present you with a check for the candidate committee for $2,500.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. I've asked Councillor Durley to accompany me. He's the next deputy there, but I wanted to thank you very much on behalf of council. We appreciate certainly the service of the fire service, and also your annual boot drive. So thank you, and this will be used for Canada Day
Excellent.
this year for the fireworks.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Again.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. And have a look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me.
Give that right to the treasurer. Thanks, John. Thanks again to the members of the fire service for their generosity, and also to the community. As they indicated, it was a boot drive, and members of the community were very, very generous. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing the results of that donation at our annual Canada Day fireworks. Now we move to delegations, and we have with us Robin Garrett, representing the Greenbelt, Friends of the Greenbelt Foundation, I believe, and it's regarding the School Street Mural Project. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Very excited about this idea that we've talked about a little bit with a few people from the town, and wanted to present a little bit as a setup just on the Greenbelt itself, so everyone is familiar with what I'm talking about. So just to remind everyone that the Greenbelt is almost 2 million acres, and it goes from Rice Lake all the way through to Niagara. Of course, most of Niagara is specialty cropland, and the tender fruit is very important to Pelham, as well as the grapes. We have a vision that includes protecting against the loss of this very valuable countryside and green space. And one of the things that's important for us in particular is agriculture. We also want to make sure that the natural systems that we have in place, the water resources, all of the land is contributing to reducing the cost of emissions and that kind of offset, as well as it provides a range of economic and social benefits. And I want to talk about the social benefits of having green space, which I think we all really understand and appreciate. Just to understand who we are, the Greenbelt is a piece of land. We are friends of the Greenbelt, and our job is to animate the Greenbelt, protect it. We're a charitable organization. We have 3 objectives mainly, especially research to understand what the green space does and how we can continue to protect it. Communicating with the public, with government officials, with stakeholders, and providing grants to particularly the agricultural sector. And we work with schools as well, so that kind of leads to where I wanted to spend some time. Just in terms of our focus, so major priority, strengthening the viability of agriculture, enhancing the environment, protecting and promoting our rural economy, and then, of course, increasing awareness and deepening the understanding of kids right through to adults and everyone who is enjoying the Greenbelt. So we have this idea. We've had a mural program for schools for years. And what we do is we approach schools and we ask them, would you like to learn about, have the curriculum for arts and science included, and we then go in and have a teacher paint with the students a mural. So Catherine Lecco is the woman that does this for us. She has done a number of murals already over the last number of years, and she teaches from grade 1 to 8. So it's quite diverse, and the program actually does the teaching for the arts and the science, health, and geography areas of the curriculum. And then what we include is an environmental ambassador who can come and talk to the students about the environment, about the green space and the green belt and how it helps them keep healthy by eating healthy local food, but also getting outside and enjoying nature. And then we cover all the costs of this program, so the paint and the teacher and the design and all the brushes and all the things that the kids need to make this beautiful mural. We've had a number of great testimonials from the kids. It really does help them understand what the Greenbelt does for them. Here's a nice little mural that was painted and a little summary of what the kids have said. For example, participating was fun, and I also got to understand about the environment. And then the last one, it's important for kids to know that if we didn't have the Greenbelt, we wouldn't have local fruits. So that's important, obviously, for this community as well. So, the proposal, and what my ask is, we would like to do something a little different here in Pelham. It's our 10th anniversary. The Greenbelt has been around for 10 years now, and some of you know there's a big review going on, but we're also celebrating 10 years of protecting this wonderful green space. And so we thought, wow, what a great opportunity to raise awareness in the community, not just with the kids. And so I've spoken to Mayor Augustine and the CAO and a number of staff people about this, and what we thought we'd do is invite 6 Pelham schools, all 6 of them, if they would like to participate in paving an intersection. And there's been a lot of work done in this area in the US and in Europe, where it's proven to be a calming when there's a beautiful mural. People see that as they're driving along and they realize, oh, they need to stop and have a look at this. So the idea would be to do this on June the 12th. We've checked some calendars, and we think that that would be a good day to do. It would take a number of hours, so from about 10 until 3 would be the time frame that the painting would be going on, and there would be kids taking turns. And then this is a PA day, so we thought this was a good day to choose because of that, in consultation with the teachers and the 2 schools that are involved. So it's Fenwick, St. Anne Fenwick, and AK Wig have both said they're very excited about participating. We haven't heard from the others, but I'm sure peer pressure, we can get them involved as well. And so the idea would be to choose an image appropriate for Pelham. How about your comfort maple? Maybe some vines, some fruit trees, farmers markets, local food, that kind of thing. The paint, we have done the research to see that we can get paint that will last at least a couple of years with no touch-up at all. And then from there, you can do just minor touch-ups, and then possibly, if you wanted it to last even longer, you would do other kinds of touch-ups. It's non-slip because there's a new component you can add. It's an additive you can add to the paint, so it won't cause any troubles with slipping. And there's a YouTube video here, which I'm not going to show you, but for those who are eager to understand how this works and just to get in the spirit, there's some great video that covers that. So the benefits of painting, absolutely it builds community spirit. Not just the day you're doing it, but the legacy it leaves as people walk by and they see this lovely mural. It demonstrates to kids the power of working together. If everybody comes together in the community to do something like this, they can see, wow, I can paint my town. I can leave an imprint. It slows traffic, as I mentioned, and it celebrates public art. The images that could be used in the mural could help bring help brand your town. So the two locations we were looking at in consultation with the town staff were the two options. One is this Arches area right outside of this building. That's one idea. And the second idea was around Pelham Street and Port Robinson. A pretty busy intersection, probably needs a little slowing, maybe traffic calming, and it's near school, so that's another option. So I will be looking for approval to do this, but also your feedback on which intersection you'd like to use. So really what we need today is approval to proceed with working with the staff, the Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Department to proceed with this project. And we would need to close the road for more than the hours I indicated because there needs to be some time to dry properly. So a good couple to maybe 3 hours in addition to the 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So we're looking at towards the end of the day to complete that. Pavement cleaning prior to actually painting it, so it's nice and clean and it doesn't chip off easily. And then communications. We'd love to get this message out to the town and get everybody excited about it. So that's what we need as a base. But if we want to make it an even better event, it might be fun to involve some spokespeople beyond maybe just the schools. Maybe there are some elected officials who might like to say a thing or two to the community about the whole Greenbelt and Pelham and the town and the outstanding community, and maybe even improve that community spirit. You've done so much work in this community about bike-friendly, the green space, the walkable community here. I think it's it's a platform for you to get up there and talk about that, and maybe talk a little bit about some of your future plans. So extras would be nice to have a lunch. It would be nice to maybe have some strawberries since it's strawberry season. And we will have just had the strawberry moon, full moon of the week before. Music, maybe some music to liven it up while the kids are out there painting. And we would be happy to work with the staff to explore details around that. But that would come after, obviously, we got the green light to proceed with planning this. And so that's the mural project, and just before I go, because I do this absolutely every time I go anywhere, is I ask you to be a friend and take the Greenbelt Pledge, and that's everybody in this room. We all love the fresh local food and wine that we have down here in Niagara, so we'd love for you to take the pledge. And the pledge is to purchase locally grown food, to drink local beverages, wine, get out and enjoy the Greenbelt, and tell all your friends about it. So hopefully you will take the pledge. There's the link there to do that. And you can become a friend on our website there as well, and you can get on our mailing list to get future information. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garrett, for your presentation. Do members of council have any questions for our presenter before you sit down? Councillor Papp?
Just quickly, I hate to put you on the spot, but I will.
Sure.
Is the assumption that all the paint, everything, and all the supplies will be provided by the municipality?
No, we do, so our contribution to this is
Right.
working with the teacher, so we pay for the teacher's time, we pay for the paint,
Okay.
for the brushes, so all the special paint that we need to get for this
You will
particular
supply.
project, we are happy to take on, yeah.
That's great.
The slide I had there about extras,
That's us.
that would be working together potentially, and I would even be willing to discuss taking on some of that as well. But what our going-in position is to say that we do have this program anyway for schools, and we're happy to do that here.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor?
Well, maybe answer, when you say you had it for schools, so you have endorsement by both boards?
So those two schools I mentioned, both of them are involved and want to be.
You know, and I don't mean to belabor it, I just went through some planning for a kids' activity in another municipality, and I discovered that sometimes, and it'd be worthwhile to find out if the board itself sanctions the event. That helps with getting the others on board.
Yes, and we
Because I
actually.
ran into a roadblock there. If it's not sanctioned, then they,
Yes, I understand, and
You know
and
what
I
I'm
do
saying?
know there's some work to rule issues and some of that
there's all
kind of
kinds of
thing
stuff I
going
ran
on,
into,
right?
same problem.
Which we discussed, and that's why we felt that if it was on a PA day.
Right.
And we worked with the town and then made this a community event, there would be a way to ensure that we were able to do this.
Yeah, maybe you can.
Okay, Mr. CEO, do you want to add to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe that the plan is for us to run the PA Day as a town camp, so that the kids would register and participate as a camp. We'd make a full day of it, and so that would take a little bit of the issues away from the work to rule and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Papp, anything further?
No, just wholeheartedly endorse it. I think it's great.
Okay, thank you. Others, questions? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, is it necessary to do this on a traveled road?
Highly traveled road?
Oh, yeah, a highly traveled intersection. What I'm thinking is, right beside us here is, every Thursday, we have hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that are coming to Peace Park, and we have the marketplace, which is there, and I think that would be an ideal spot for folks coming to purchase and look at local goods, to look on the ground and see, hey, like the Greenbelt Stair would be a reminder, just as a suggestion. I don't know if you take that for what it's worth.
Ms. Garrett, any comment on that? Or?
I think it's really up to the town to decide the best place for it. From our standpoint, the idea of having as many views as possible, if we can reach more people by having it in a place that's very much higher traffic, then that's great. I do think that you'll get more value out of it in a place that's a walkable place in town. The driving by idea, you won't appreciate it quite the same as if you're also able to walk by it. So that's why the idea of near a school, or we looked at the arches, those two options seemed to be particularly good. But if you've got yet another idea, it's about the size. And we can't have it too large because it'll take longer. But the intersection that we identified and that archway is absolutely something we can do within one day.
Councillor?
As a secondary to that, there's so much emphasis on distracting drivers that I'm just wondering if, our former engineer did indicate that painting extra lines on the road to signify you're coming up to a speed hump would detract drivers, and I'm looking at that as a safety issue, and I'm sure you've done this elsewhere, but it is a concern. Would that create some liabilities or
I
whatever?
invite you to have a look at that video. It's very good, and they've done some research on the impact of street painting in intersections, and they've proven that it actually does calm traffic. And there's been some interesting solutions, and I know your planning department has taken some leadership roles in this area. And really, you can be quite creative and still be traffic friendly and walk friendly, bike friendly, all those things together.
Okay. Anything further?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If there's an amendment required to a motion, we can do that, or we can hear from staff in a second when we put the motion on the floor, Councillor. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Garrett at this time? Okay, thank you very much. So we do have a motion here. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that delegation information submitted by the School Street Mural Project, Greenbelt, be received, and that Council hereby authorizes staff to work with Friends of the Greenbelt to proceed with a street mural project, including selection of the most appropriate location, and that staff be directed to finalize the event through the appropriate road closures, pavement cleaning, and communication needs. I'm going to call on the CAO to perhaps answer some of the concerns from Councillor Durley in terms of the location. Will that come back to council? What's the plan on that, Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have yet to nail down, although there are some good suggestions, we have yet to nail down the exact location, so we'll be coming back to council with a recommendation at the next council meeting to finalize the location.
Okay. Councillor Durley, would that
Yeah,
help?
that's fine.
Look at those options?
The motion is open enough to consider more than just the two options, which is good.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
Any other speakers to the motion? No? I think it's, I'm just going to say, I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate you coming forward with it, and look forward to it proceeding on that day as we've outlined. We look forward to recommendations coming back for location. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you and turning this into quite the event. Thank you.
So much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is minutes. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May 4th be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now we move to, as we said at the beginning of the meeting, we're now moving to,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor,
Business arising from?
that's where we are now.
Oh.
Business arising from the minutes. Madam Clerk, was there an order that was with those?
Well, first we had the staff report, then we have the letter from the band shell, and then we have Councillor Ribiak's item.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we
My
are now
apologies, Mr. Mayor.
at item 9.
Okay, thank you. So we're now at item 9, and we're going to be dealing with the letter and the report, and also, I think, really dealing with it all together. So it has been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Papp, whereas the Council of the Town of Pelham has determined that it wishes to restrict the size of a licensed area during the bandshell concerts for the 2015 season, and whereas an unlicensed area is situated immediately adjacent, and whereas the Council of the Town of Pelham has an obligation to limit the liability of the Town of Pelham during such events, be it therefore resolved that, 1, the Bandshell Concerts, Inc. be provided with a copy of the bylaw governing park use and non-consumption of alcohol other than in licensed areas. 2, the town post signs in the park advising patrons that possession of alcoholic beverages is prohibited and contrary to the bylaw. 3, that uniformed regional police officers be hired to monitor each event. 4, in addition, Fonthill Bandshell Concerts, Inc. shall indemnify the town of Pelham against any claims arising as a result of the consumption of alcohol in the unlicensed area and shall provide proof of the town of Pelham is listed as named insured on its liability policy in an amount of not less than $5 million. And 5, all costs for the above shall be borne by Fonthill Bandshell Concerts, Inc. Discussion on the motion. I'm going to actually turn, do I turn to you, Mr. CAO, regarding the insurance, or? Okay, so there was a question about the level of insurance that was required, and I'm going to ask the CAO to clarify that, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The $5 million liability was what our insurer would have required to be carried if the event area was licensed. Because this is not a licensed area, therefore, our insurer requires $2 million liability to be carried by the bandshell as opposed to the 5. So I would suggest that council consider that as an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Does council want to deal with that amendment immediately? And then we'll move on to other discussion. Councillor Papp, will you move that
I'd like,
change not less
yeah,
than
I'd
2
like to
million?
move that amendment, and I believe that the band shell has already provided us that with that anyways, don't they?
That's correct.
Yes.
So, I guess my question would be, forgive me,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, is it redundant? If in fact they've already done that, then do we have to add that in? Or just remove the clause referring to the 5 million? I would rather strike that.
Okay. It is under the rental agreement terms and conditions, a $2 million liability, so
So-
it could be struck.
It could be, I would, geez, my mind's gone, I would move that particular section 3, be removed.
Section 4, thank you.
Or section 4,
So
pardon me.
Councillor Papp moves that we strike clause 4 about any mention of insurance. Is there a seconder for that? I see Councillor King nodding her head. So I'll take that as a seconding. Any further discussion to that point?
No.
There being none, I call the question on that amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment carries, and that is now struck from the main motion as amended. Further discussion. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some major concerns about this whole matter. And it deals with the whole Thursday night experience, not just the bandshell experience. Let me start with the first organization that did have some doings on Thursday night, that being the farmer's market. There has been a change to the way the farmer's market is now operating, in that they will be offering samples and sale of wine in bottles. Therefore, they are dealing now with something that is an alcoholic beverage, which they were not before. Secondly, the band shell, which was second in line to things that were happening, is operating in their 10th year, hopefully, with exactly the same conditions that they have been doing for the last 9 years. No alcohol, nothing irregular. Everything is going to be exactly the same as it was. Thirdly, the newest addition to our Thursday night activities is the supper market. The supper market last year operated with a very limited area where alcoholic beverages were served to those people who enjoyed a libation with their meal and the services of the meals that were offered by the participants in the supper market. That is now being proposed to be enlarged because of several reasons, one of which, or not the least of which, is the fact that it was so popular that we were, the town was in a position where the attendance perhaps was surpassing the actual number of people who were more than the square footage would allow for under Liquor License Board. Therefore, that is another area where liquor and alcohol is being served. The band shell is not. Now, when I look at this resolution, it is putting all the onus on the band shell, which has absolutely no connection whatsoever with any alcohol. I would believe that I would be remiss in saying that we need to put restrictions on a group that has been operating for 9 years, that has not changed their operation, because the neighboring activities on Thursday night are dealing with alcohol. And in fact, if there is any further things that need to be done to ensure that alcohol is confined in the area, that the onus should be on those people that are serving the alcohol or selling the alcohol, not those which aren't. I have very much difficulty in supporting this because of these very reasons. The fact that a licensed or a police officer needs to be in an unlicensed area when right next door they're serving alcohol, to me seems kind of silly. And I know there are other activities in town where alcohol is served where there is no need for a uniformed on-duty police officer to be present. I'm just wondering if this is an overkill. We're looking at putting a thumbtack in the bulletin board with a sledgehammer, and I really don't think that's necessary. I will have very much difficulty in supporting this. As a matter of fact, as it sits, I cannot support this, and I bring that forward for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durley. Other members of council, please. There may be times where you disagree with council, and so we don't want to have that, you motion that in any way. So I would just ask that you refrain from applause, and you can certainly thank those councillors that you agree with after the meeting, or bemoan those that you disagree with after the meeting. So I thank you very much. Other members of council, Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read this, I guess I wanted to respond on 3 points. And I think that in light of Councillor Durley's presentation, I need to modify a little bit of what I was going to say. The first thing I was going to say is with regard to the alternative suggested within the report. The alternative, of course, is that the licensed area should include the entirety of Peace Park. That's a position that we took initially as a council, and we took it because we had good advice from both our insurers and, excuse me, the Ontario Alcohol and Gambling organization as well, and now more recently from our lawyers as well. And that seemed to us, I think, at the time to be an effective and efficient way of providing the control that was being made apparent by the fact that with additional activities on our property, our level of responsibility and liability was going to increase, and we needed to respond to that somehow. So a proposal was made, which council accepted, to include the entirety of Peace Park. In response to concerns that were raised last meeting, we modified that. I'm not sure that I'm not of the view that the best response would be to license the entire area, but I'm not going to make that motion. If that's a motion that's going to be made, it'll need to be made by others who perhaps proposed reducing the area in the first place. So that's number one. I still think that licensing the entire Peace Park would be best, and I would be happy to support that if somebody else were to make that motion. The second thing that I think I want to say is that I do feel that there is a need for a motion like this, but not perhaps in exactly this form. I think that it could bear some amending, and I would want us to think about that. I think that the fact is that we have learned through the course of the discussion that we've had around this subject that there has been, however informal and however hidden, the use of alcohol in the park, around the concerts. We've come to know it. We understand that it's there. I don't think we can unknow it. This is information that we have. To ignore it, to not respond to it, might seem irresponsible, certainly to my mind. If we understand that those are the circumstances that exist, then something needs to be done. And some of the measures that are mentioned in this motion, I think, address that. And in a general sort of way that I think I can support, and that is that there be some level of surveillance, at least, with respect to the use of alcohol within the unlicensed area. We understand that up until this discussion, whatever use of alcohol there was without any problems. And in fact, that tells me that there's likely not going to be problems, even if the area was licensed. So to me, this entire discussion, to an extent, is a tempest in a teapot in those, given those circumstances. But the fact that it's happening, and we know it's happening, I think speaks to our liability, and we need to do something. Councillor Durley may be right that it doesn't require a policeman, but I think it requires something. And the third thing that I think I wanted to say was with respect to the bearing of the costs. I was not in agreement as I reviewed this and considered it more fully. I'm not in agreement with the view that the cost should be borne by the Fonthill Bandshell Concert Incorporated. I think that if we had started off their experience 9 or 10 years ago with the entire bandshell either licensed or half the park licensed, we would not at that point have been looking for that kind of involvement by the committee. I think that asking for it now, given that the things have changed, is probably more than we need to do. I think that the bandshell committee uses town's property, uses the bandshell. The venue, of course, is the park itself. We provide that. They're not paying a rent for it, per se. I think the costs of providing that venue ought to belong to the town, and they use it as they find it. And it's up to us to provide the venue in the shape that we think that it's appropriate to provide. So I would look at some point to make an amendment to this around that the costs of the security and the signage not be borne by the bandshell committee. I think it's the question of insurance has already been put to bed, so we don't need to worry about that. But the other part of the motion that I'd like us to really pay attention to is the fact that this is with regard to the 2015 season only. And I think that it should be understood that beginning with the next season and beyond, the entire park, we may decide as a council that the entire park ought to be licensed, but that we will do that early enough that people have notice and that there are issues with regard to being taken by surprise or somehow not being aware would have been put to rest. I still think that licensing the entire park is probably the easiest and most efficient and frankly the best way to control our property in the way that we would want it to be controlled. So let me finish there. Let me just say that the amendment that I want to make, if someone cares to second it, is that the costs not be borne by the Fonthill Bandshell Concert Incorporated, but rather by the town.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor, for your comments. We'll see if other councillors have comments or want to second that amendment. Other comments from councillors? Councillor Papp?
Just for you, for clarification, Councillor Ribiak, are referring to the costs of the security, of providing an appropriate security as well?
That's right.
Number 5, I believe.
Number 5 is with
There's all
respect
of the
to,
above.
that's right. And the 3 areas of cost in the above are insurance, security, and signage, unless I'm missing something. And so those are the 3 things I was reading that those costs would refer to. Insurance, we've already put to bed. Signage, I think, is something that we would want to provide. The big issue is with regard to security, and what the motion provides is that the security ought to be provided by the NRPS. There's some question as to whether that's necessary or not, but if it is necessary, if that's the level of security that we feel is appropriate for the park and its activities, that's a cost that we ought to bear, but with the understanding that it's for this year only, because next year, presumably, we are going to look at what is the best way of controlling that park, and if NRPS or other security mechanisms are more expensive than we want it to be, then we may look at a different option. This is with regard to 2015 season only, and there may be other options for next year.
Okay, thank you. I hope that clarifies, Councillor.
Yeah, I think back a week or so, that was the intent, that at the end of the season, we would sit down and evaluate the whole venue itself and the whole protocol to see what went well and what things we need to adjust.
Yep.
But and having had some experience in these type of events, you don't need the Niagara Regional Police. I guess my question is also through you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. CEO. I can't remember, with the supermarket, did we have security people there? I can't.
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes.
So we've already, yes, we did. I should remember, I was part of the committee. So that security, so I think it's suffice to say that all with except 2, that 2 and 3, that the town post signs regarding alcoholic beverages, and that an appropriate security protocol be established. But in fact, I think we've already got that. Am I wrong?
Ms. Van
Sorry,
Ravensway?
Mr. Sorry,
No, that's
Mr.
okay.
Mayor.
Ms. Van Ravensway, can you clarify? I think
getting
there's
confused.
some misunderstanding in terms of the rationale for why staff are recommending this, and we have some feedback from legal and our insurer. Can you just elaborate on that, please, and maybe we'll turn to the CEO as well.
Mr. Mayor, the area that will have security is the licensed area. If we're no longer licensing the whole park, that security would only be at the entrances of the licensed area. We would hire additional security for the rest of the park. If the park was fully licensed,
Right.
then the security would be at the entrances and it would be fenced. Without the fencing, there would be no entry security. The security could wander around.
Does that help, or maybe, Mr. CEO, can you clarify a little bit in terms of what's the recommendation from staff in terms of the police officer and police officers and where they would do their work, as a difference from what Councillor Papp is asking in terms of the security that was used last year and will be used again this year at the in the licensed area?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue, if I understand the question correctly, the issue is not what's sort of different from before. The issue is that we now know in writing that there is alcohol consumption in the park in non-licensed areas. That's been documented. Because we now know that, as Councillor Ribiak pointed out, we cannot now not know it. So, in other words, if something happens in the park and it's alcohol related, the town would be liable because we did not take the appropriate steps to ensure that we were minimizing our liability. So the recommendation is to have additional security. It was, I understand the staff report recommended 2 NRP officers. That is not something that is an absolute requirement. It is a recommendation. It could be security, it could be bylaw, it could be a number of things depending on council's level of comfort. But the simple fact of the additional security is because we now have documentation that demonstrates the town knows that there is alcohol consumption in a non-licensed area against town bylaws, which creates a liability for the council. So as Councillor Papp often says, it's a situation of having to immunize the municipality against potential liability.
Thank you, Mr. Seo. Councillor Papp?
That helps a great deal. So what I'm hearing is we'll continue with the security as we do normally within the supper market, and that if the amendment could say that we will then engage an appropriate security group to oversee the events throughout the summer at our cost. That's it, period, and signage. I'm not trying to simplify it, and the rest of this falls off the table.
The cost issue does not, with respect.
That still has to be
The
dealt
cost
with.
issue does not.
The cost of?
The cost issue.
The cost issue, Councillor Papp indicated that his preference would be what yours was, Councillor Rybak and others, that the cost be borne by the municipality as
I agree.
opposed to user
Yeah.
group.
So that would be a second to my motion, I assume. Okay.
Because
So we may have to, based on the discussion at
Go ahead.
council,
Go on, Mr. Mayor.
we may have to amend, it sounds like we want amendments to it.
So only two.
What's being recommended is essentially on number 5, that all costs above shall be borne by Fawn Hill Concerts, Banshell Concerts, Inc. Either that, I would recommend that either be struck or that it be amended to say by the town of Pelham. And then the second is, and this was suggested by Councillor Rybak, the second is regarding number 3, the uniformed Niagara Regional Police officers be hired to monitor each event. Perhaps staff can recommend, I don't know if you're willing to do that, Mr. CEO, recommended a different language. Councillor Papp provided additional language to say something like appropriate
Yeah, the security.
security personnel be hired to monitor each event, something like that. Okay, so Councillor, well, I'm going to move with Councillor Papp. Would you make the amendment regarding the uniformed Niagara Regional Police officers,
That in
that appropriate security personnel be hired to monitor each event?
each event, simple as that.
Okay? And who wants to second that? Councillor King wants to second that. Any further discussion to that point? Councillor Durley and then Councillor Rybak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the wording of that indicates that we're going out somewhere to get somebody to do this, to be hired. I'm just looking at the, a security patrol be established, not to hire, like we don't have to go out and necessarily get a security group to come in, as mentioned in the discussion, perhaps bylaw can do it, or something like that. But again, something that's appropriate, to me, that sounds like we
Yep.
need to have an expense to go out and hire somebody. That may not be necessary. If it is, fine, but let's look at means by which we can secure our needs and our safety and our lack of lessen liability. Okay.
Be established. Thank you, Councillor. We're going to work on the wording of that. Councillor King?
No, that's fine. It's been stated.
So what you recommended, Councillor, that appropriate security personnel be, you said established, is that correct? It may be hired, it may not be hired, I guess is what it is. So
Appropriate service. Security measures.
be utilized.
Okay, and that either hired or not, but whatever's necessary.
Be utilized to monitor each event.
That works?
Is that okay? To the mover and the seconder, are you okay with that wording?
Yeah.
Instead of be hired, be utilized to monitor each event? Councillor Rybak?
Yeah. Well, let me speak to that, because I think that
Okay.
indicated. The advice we got was to use police services. That's the best advice that we've had. So my strong suggestion is that if we're going to do something less than what we've been advised to do, that we get whatever information we need to get to ensure that what we do go with is in fact going to be effective and is going to be acceptable as a measure that mitigates our responsibility. Anything less than that means that we're just icing a cake and not really doing anything substantive with it at all. So the best advice we had was to use the police. If not the police, then who would carry equal or close to that kind of credibility in terms of doing this job?
Thank you. Mr. CAO, the councilor's expressing concern about, well, you heard the councilor. In terms of, can you report back to council? Obviously, staff will have to take this away. That was your recommendation. So if council determines this, staff will have to take this away
Yes.
and
Good idea.
come back to us with what this appropriate security personnel
that's-
looks like.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. We'll do the analysis. We'll also consult our insurer obviously, the whole exercise is to minimize the town's liability, and then we'll report back to council with the results.
Perfect.
Okay, so it could be bylaw as suggested.
Could be a combination.
It could be hired, it could be, and I do want to acknowledge that I have had some discussions with members of the band shell regarding this issue, and I know that they monitored this on an ad hoc basis as needed to a certain degree. So I'm sure they'd be pleased to let go of this responsibility or this requirement. But I do say it was sort of, as things progressed, it was occurring. So someone was taking care of it. So the motion is appropriate security personnel be utilized to monitor each event, with the understanding that the staff will come back to council at our next meeting with their recommendation on that, should resources be required, et cetera. Okay? Are we okay with that amendment, or are there any other changes to the amendment? Then I'm going to call the question on the amendment to number 3. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now the last piece, which is what Councillor, I believe the last piece, it could be more, that Councillor Ribbiak talked about, number 5. And there are 2 recommendations there. Either it be struck or that it be clearly stated that those costs be borne by the municipality. Councillor Ribbiak, your preference?
I'm happy with it being struck. It amounts to the same thing.
Great.
Thank you. So Councillor Ribbiak, your amendment is to strike number 5. Councillor Papp will second that. Any further discussion to that? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Any other discussion regarding the motion? So for those that are watching, did you want to say something further, Councillor Junkin? Thank you. So those that are watching, the town will provide you with a bylaw according to this amendment regarding this motion regarding the park usage. The town will put signs up regarding alcoholic beverages. That appropriate security personnel will be used to monitor each event, and that those costs will not be borne by the band shell, but will be borne by the municipality.
For 1 year,
Pardon?
for this season.
For this year, and it's understood that thank you, Councillor, it's understood that it is for this season, and as Councillor Papp indicated, there will be the discussion following up in the fall, following the season, what else are there other learnings that we need to take out of this to move forward? Are we ready for calling the question as thrice amended? Councillor Papp?
Just once this report comes back on June the 1st, I presume?
Yes.
Okay. And then its effective date is when? When the concert begins, or the day that when do we start?
I believe the intention is the first band shell concert.
First concert series right straight through to that.
Ms. Van Ravensway?
All right. So that would monitor all the area, the supper, okay, supper market as well on that. That's fine.
Okay. Councillor Durley?
A point of concern: in the farmer's market will be selling wine. The supper market will be serving alcoholic beverages. We still have a park that has no band shell, but is there, and it's still our property. So should it be effective from the date that we
That's
do
what I'm
it?
getting at.
Or,
Oh, I see.
I'm
getting-
thinking that the band shell is not the key
They're not the
as
persons.
far as putting things into order. We have this situation that's ongoing. So I'm thinking that it should be from the time it's approved or the time that it's resolved, the resolution, that takes place at that particular moment.
Yep, thank you. So, Ms. Van Ravensway, remind us when the supper market starts.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is June the 4th.
June the 4th. So what I'm hearing is
So it's effective.
Councillor
immediately.
Durley is suggesting, and Councillor Papp are suggesting that perhaps it be started then, when the supper market and the wine, was the wine already being served at the farmer's market? Or not served, sold, sorry.
Yes, the wine is being served now.
Okay. Not right now, otherwise we'd go get some,
But
but,
as of the beginning of the season.
I could use some right now.
thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Durley and Councillor Pat, for pointing that out in terms of starting. So it would effectively start on the 4th of
As soon
June.
as we're, right.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? I'm going to call the question as thrice amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. There was the issue of receiving the item of correspondence. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Rybak, second by Councillor Durley. Correspondence dated May 15th, 2015 from the Fawn Hill Bandshell concerts regarding the Peace Park liability issues during concerts be received. We've already substantially dealt with that matter. I'm going to call the question, although unless there's questions or comments, going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the last item on this is Councillor Rybak. You had a question regarding
I did. I
business
just-
arising.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking for an update with regard to that item. We discussed at length in our last meeting about the Bandshell Committee providing its financials. I wonder whether there's any progress, anything to report.
And that's in relation to the gift in kind and the,
Both the gift in kind and,
Madam Treasurer, can you update council, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point, I have not received any correspondence.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So has there been any communication at all? Are we expecting to receive that document which is meant to qualify the Bandshell Committee to receive any and all
Okay.
of what we provide?
Ms. Balchis Chataway is here and has indicated to me that she'd be prepared to answer the question, Councillor, if you're okay with that, and all of council.
I'm okay, just want to know.
Ms. Balchis Chataway, if you could just indicate. Thank you very much.
We actually gave you our last year's 2013 financial statement and our statement up to date, and we submitted our initial application in August of 2014. So you did receive that information following the last council meeting that we were at after asking for conflict of interest and previously trying to give it to Ms. Pupo. We have since and subsequently received a letter from Ms. Bozato confirming that you do wish it and that was denied. I just received that on Thursday. The Bandshell board members meet again later this week, on Thursday of this week, which I believe is May the 20th, 21st, thank you. And we'll be addressing it then and then forwarding it to Ms. Pupo.
Okay. Hope that answers you. Thank you for your response, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, and thank you for the response. Just so long as we understand that is an important qualification that we put on all of the grants that we provide, and equally so in this case. So we've been having quite a discussion. Let's make sure that we don't risk the season by missing that important element.
Okay, thank you. I think it's, thank you for your comments, and thank you, Ms. Balchis Chataway, and the Bandshell Committee for your consideration. We look forward to staff seeing that and acknowledging that, so that the gift in kind, which is really what it is, can be granted in this case. There are certain fees, I understand, that the town pays for as part of that gift in kind. The SOCAN fees, which are the music fees, some other fees are accredited to that, and I know that if the Bandshell members have questions about what each of those fees are that are accredited to that $5,000 gift in kind, they can certainly contact our treasurer regarding that, or maybe that can be provided as well when they consider it on Thursday. Would that be helpful as well?
Because it's actually, we've never received that in the 9 years that we've been in operations. So I think our board is very much like to receive a copy of what we do.
Thank you.
Kind of those costs up.
Thank you. Ms. Pupo, well, I would say that this is a new requirement that we've done for all service clubs and gifts in kind. But Ms. Pupo, if you, on behalf of council, if you could provide that, what is itemized in that gift, gift in kind to them, so that they can consider it at their board meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on that issue? Thank you very much, and thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your presence and your ongoing work to put together one of the best events in our town, and we look forward to working with you, continue to work together with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. As they're leaving, I will now carry on. It has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Durley, or the consent agenda items. Sorry, we should see if there's any other items that the council wants to lift from consent agenda for a separate consideration. There being none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Durley?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The resolution from Trent Lakes,
1156.
Aggregates, yeah.
yes,
Okay.
regarding aggregates, and it may just be a question, but 11.3.2, let's lift it, and if we need a resolution, then I can do it. If not, then we can just move it as received.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other items to lift?
Sorry, it was on 248.
5.3, Friends of the Greenbelt report, is that correct? But that's the second one, Councillor?
No, the
Transportation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
the resolution from Trent Lakes regarding aggregates.
Yes.
Right.
And
What's the
other
second
you
one?
wanted to do?
13.2.1.
Sorry.
Oh, the consulting, okay.
That's not
That's not on the
consent.
consent agenda, though.
That's not, I'm sorry, okay.
Okay, so just that one item. It's been moved by Councillor Papp, second by,
Mayor, I
I'm
have a
sorry?
couple, I have a couple that I want to lift as well.
Oh, sure, go ahead,
Item 11.
Councillor.
11.42, the wheelchair ramp project, and 11.43, the letter to council regarding bollards.
Okay. Thank you. Others? All right, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Papp, second by Councillor Durley, be it resolved that the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. One, recommendations from our committee of the whole meeting, and the recommendation is that those recommendations arising from that meeting be received and approved, and that the clerk be and is hereby authorized to provide notice through the Town of Pelham's website advertising the recommended change to the Town of Pelham's procedure bylaw as required by policy 201-14. Next, we have the minutes of that committee of the whole meeting, and the recommendation is that they be approved. Then we have staff reports of routine nature or information or action, the first being the Summerfest road closure. The council received the report, and that for reasons outlined in the report, council authorizes the following additional road closure. Pelham Town Square entrance off Pelham Street from 7 a.m. Thursday, July 16th to 7 a.m. Friday, July 17th, 2015. And also the MTO Community Transportation Grant Report. The council receives the issue summary report regarding this grant program transfer payment agreement, and the council support the Community Transportation Pilot Program and authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Transportation. Next, we have action correspondence of a routine nature, the first being Tim Hortons Camp Day, and that the motion is that the correspondence be received and that Tim Hortons be advised that a representative from the town of Pelham will participate in the Camp Day as suggested. The wheelchair ramp project has been lifted. Letter to council regarding bollards has also been lifted. The next is the budget need. The council received the issue summary report entitled Budget Need Ball Diamond Groomer, and the council approved an expenditure of $8,130.99 for the purchase of a ball diamond groomer with dust control from Bannerman. And then the next item are items of correspondence. The first, the Auditor General's report regarding winter highway maintenance. The second, Fort Erie resolution regarding taxi service in the town of Fort Erie. The third, Friends of the Greenbelt Foundation report. The fourth, Niagara Central Airport quarterly report. The fifth, the Monarchist League of Canada. The Trent Lakes resolution has been lifted. Request for nominations for the gold medal for good citizenship, and the council, the information correspondence be received for information on all of those items. And finally, committee minutes for information, library board minutes of March 25th, Summerfest minutes of April 21st and May 5th. And the motion is that those minutes be received for information. Comments or questions on any of those items under consent? Councillor Papp?
Just, the ball diamond, that particular issue, I've just asked myself, why is this here? Why can't you, is it because we didn't budget for it? Because, or couldn't we deal with it internally, Mr. CEO? I'm trying to make things easier. I'm just asking, I'm trying to wonder why it's here.
It's a budget item that we budgeted out for the item, but because of a change in exchange rate and other financial issues, the actual purchase price is higher than the budget amount. So we felt it prudent to get council approval on that.
So the budget amount was
Okay, so-
7,500, the purchase price is about 8,100.
That's
So it's
correct.
about
So-
$4,000.
No, I have no problem, so that's a matter of protocol, policy that we need to do that. Okay, I want to revisit that some point, but that's, okay, I want to be clear on that. That's fine, no problem.
Thank you. Anyone else on that issue? There being none, other issues, other items? I want to thank, in his capacity as chair of the board, chair of the commission, for your quarterly update, Councillor Rybak. Very, very informative and lots of activities going on at the airport, so thank you very much for those, and we look forward to further progress on that. It's very, very informative, and something I don't know that we've seen here lately, so
And
thank
it's our
you.
intention to continue that at least through the next 4 years.
Very good, thank you very much. And there was another item I wanted to comment on. And I think it was the, no, I think it's been, oh, I know, the Tim Hortons Camp Day. I am available for that, and I know Councillor Durley has participated in that in the past. So if councillors are able to participate, my office can certainly communicate with Tim Hortons if you want. It's a great event, a great show of support from our community, and there's much generosity there. So I'd encourage you, if you're able, to participate. Others? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 11.4.3, the letter received from the Happy Place.
We're going to deal with that separately.
Separately?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Councillor.
you.
And along with 4.2, the wheelchair. Okay. Anything else on the consent agenda items? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now, Councillor Durley, to your first, the Municipality of Trent Lakes resolution regarding aggregates.
Yes, it's a very interesting resolution that they made, and they are faced with challenges that I think are similar to what we face at the game, in that it appears that the aggregates in that area are, the aggregate miners in that area are taking whatever they need, whenever they need it. There's no regulations requiring them to show a need for this, and I would like to pass or make a motion to support and endorse this motion for them in favor of the Ministry of changing the aggregate, the Ministry of Natural Resources, I guess, changing the Aggregate Resources Act to require proponents to demonstrate a need to extract that particular resource in a particular area, because this is happening in our game, and we are trying to preserve the game. Therefore, that would be another step in us helping to preserve that. So I would like to make that a motion, and
Okay.
looking for a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there a seconder for Councillor Durley's motion? Councillor Rybak, you'll second that? You
Absolutely.
want to speak to it any further? Any other councillors want to speak to it? I think I would just speak to it to say certainly supportive, but their experience may be slightly different than ours. I didn't understand that they were necessarily in the green belt, and so we have slightly different controls in terms of the green belt. So, but certainly I think it's important for us to endorse it. So thank you, Councillor, for raising it. And when ready, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor, for raising it. Councillor Rybak, you raised two items. The first was the wheelchair ramp project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I found the letter to be an excellent letter, and the cause an excellent cause. And I'm certainly not opposed to us reimbursing the cost of the permit. However, I don't know why we would do this as a one-off. If we are going to be excusing permits, building permits for ramps, perhaps other kinds of buildings, structures, where there's a case of disability and a case of need, I wonder whether we shouldn't have a policy that covers that, and that we not be addressing this on the basis of a one-off. This person gets it, somebody else doesn't. That there ought to be some conditions, and that maybe staff can be asked to put together, a policy that reflects that in cases where there is a disability and where there's also financial need, that in those circumstances, we might consider excusing permit fees.
Okay.
I just have
Thank you.
difficulty with a motion like this, where it's a one-off and, it raises questions about the specifics of the individual, or the specifics of the cases that I think ought to be addressed within a policy framework.
Thank you very much. Just to provide a little bit more background, you'll note that the letter is from the Fenwick Firefighters Association, who are doing this work on behalf of a member of the community. They successfully fundraised both with their own resources and from the broader community to get the supplies necessary to build this ramp. And certainly there was a need. They also invited, I heard about it, this was last spring, I think, so I did hear about it and was there when they were building, and it's quite an elaborate ramp. So in terms of that, we often, unless staff disagree, I don't think we often get a situation where one group necessarily builds a ramp for someone else, and we would deal with it necessarily in this one-off situation. But I think, Councillor, what you're looking at is something a little bit broader, that if someone, for a particular reason of need, et cetera, needs to build a ramp. So, just for clarity, you're looking to what? To direct staff to develop a policy that we might follow to
That's
deal
right,
with these
Mr. Mayor.
particular situations? Is that what you're looking for, Councillor?
That's right, that if we are going to be specifically excusing the cost of the permit, I can see two other situations where this might have fallen into, but that's not what they asked for. If they'd asked the town for a donation, that's not specific to any particular cost, I guess we would consider making a donation. The other is that if the firefighters had done fundraising in order to cover the cost of this thing, then one of the costs is the permit. So really what's in front of us is, do we excuse the permit? And under what circumstances are we going to undertake to excuse permits? In some cases, yes. Other cases, no. Anybody who comes forward with a request my ramp needs to be built. Why do I have to pay for the permit? Somebody else didn't have to pay for theirs. I think we'd like to be able to answer that question. So, to my mind, either we have a policy framework within which the questions can be answered to anybody whenever they ask, and from my perspective, I think it's probably a good thing that the town have a program to support people who are both disabled and in need, and therefore, wouldn't have the wherewithal to provide themselves with a ramp. Otherwise, that would be a good thing. Otherwise, let's not excuse the cost of the permit. Let's just make a donation toward the firefighters and not have it apropos of anything at all, and just deal with that and assume that the permit will be paid.
Okay. Mr. CAO, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff would be happy to look into the councilor's concern and make a recommendation back to council. We do have to do some analysis on that.
Okay, is that all right? So your motion is to receive, to approve it, to refund the cost, and to direct staff to come up with a policy for future, perhaps, situations. Are you okay with that?
Well, I was actually proposing that we come back with a policy statement, and within the provisions of that policy statement, be able to provide the cost of this permit consistent with the policy.
Okay. Do you want to refund the permit now or not? And if, and then we'll have to look for a second.
I'm reluctant to.
Okay.
I understand why we would do it, and I support why we would do it, but I'm reluctant to pay for it as a one-off. I'd really rather see that within a policy framework so that we know we can answer anybody.
So your motion is to refer this to staff for a policy and to come back to us. That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? And that will essentially stop the process of refunding. So I'm going to see if there's a seconder for that motion. Councillor Pound?
I'd like to second it with the caveat that we pay this for the time being as a one-off, but come back with a policy, because we have in the past done some things, and I'm maybe not aware, Councilor Ribiak, we've done things that have been a one-off, and I think that doesn't mean this sets the precedent. But in the meantime, I would rather take care of it that way, and that's a Solomon's approach. pay
Right.
for it, and then come back with a policy, and I think the CAO has already indicated to us he's got something he can come back. Because you're right, I have, myself, and I'm sure, we have received other requests for the same type of thing, where nonprofit organizations are going to a person's home, asking exactly that.
In as much, Mr. Mayor, as I believe that this would fall within the policy, whatever policy you
Okay,
come up
right.
with, I would go along with that.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
So that's been moved by Councilor Ribbiak, seconded by Councilor Pap, that we direct staff, that we receive the letter, that we direct staff to develop a policy, but in the meantime, that we do refund the cost as is outlined in the report. Okay? Is there, I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Councilor. And now to the second item regarding the bollards. And I believe we received a picture this morning of a particular bollard that was hit by
Two of them.
some sort of vehicle. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I don't have any particular problem with moving the bollards, but what didn't come with this was any indication of why the bollards were there in the first place. What purpose were they serving? If there was a purpose, how is that purpose going to be served going forward if the bollards are removed? And I'm just wondering whether, because we've heard so many issues about the bollards, whether we're really certain that the bollards everywhere that they are within the town are actually serving a purpose, and maybe that ought to be reviewed, and anything that is viewed not to serve a purpose anymore be taken away.
Thank you. The motion that was recommended, Councilor, was that this be referred to staff, I presume, for report. So would that help your,
Certainly would.
maybe it needs to be clarified, so it just says forwarded to Public Works staff. So let's
Yeah.
just say for report? How
Yes.
does that sound? Will you make that amendment, that we received the letter, that the letter be forwarded to Public Works staff for report?
Yeah, you're right. I thought it meant forwarded to Public Works to get it done. And so
Okay.
I stand corrected.
That's fine. Is there a seconder for that? Councilor Pap? Any further discussion? Going to Councilor Pap?
Just 30, we've had extensive discussions with Madam Engineer about this when those bullards were put in. We've been through many manifestations, so the rationalization of that, Mr. CO, and then come back to let us know what works, because there's been both pros and cons, and I'd like to hear what would be the best course of action with this. It's not just there's been a couple other areas down the
Yes.
road that have been,
And they've been removed?
Mr. Mayor, you're aware,
Yeah.
they've been removed, they have been removed, so.
I'd like to know if they're magnetized, because vehicles seem to get attracted to them for some reason.
Put them out there and give out parking tickets, you gave me one.
Anything further? I don't mean to cut off any councilors. Thank you. I'm going to call the question on that to receive it and direct it to staff for report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. I believe that's all the items for consent. Thank you. Now we move to report from members of council. And the first is my report. Just a couple of items here, and this is of a while ago. It's, again, because I missed that council meeting. I want to thank Jerry Winnicky for making a wonderful presentation at the Fawn Hill Lions Club Annual Agricultural Night. It was very, very informative about a recent trip to review farming in Brazil. Very, very informative, and as part of his work with Clark Agri Services, he organized that trip, and Councillor Junkin was there as well, and it was a wonderful event of the farming community, so I wanted to highlight that. Councillor Durley, thank you for being present when we worked together with staff. That really did all the heavy lifting on this for the Earth Day tree planting on the 22nd of April. And thanks to Peter Lukashik of Close Inc. for donating a dozen red maple trees for use by the town, and staff are arranging the locations for those trees to be included at various passive parks and along trails. So thank you very much. We did have a youth forum. This is, I believe it's the 4th annual Pelham Youth Forum, and it was organized by members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And really getting 60 leaders from our community, representatives from each of the schools in the town, to attend and ask them similar questions to what we asked in previous times, but also specifically talk about the community center and what they would like to see in the community center. So how might you improve Pelham, how might you make it more youth-friendly, etc. staff are still working on that report, but we do have a pretty substantive report that needs to be looked at by the members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and then come to Town Council for consideration and appropriate areas. If something has to go to the Accessibility Design Advisory Committee, or sorry, the Architectural Design Advisory Committee, then it can be sent there. And thank you. It was great to sit with Councillor Papp at the annual Chamber of Commerce charity auction. I haven't heard how successful it was. I hope it was.
It's in the
It's in
report.
Councillor's
Yep.
report. So, and that was in support of Family and Children's Services. So that is my report. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that Mayor Augustine's report, May 19th, be received for information. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now we move to Councillor Papp with your report. Councillor, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I have two quick reports. One is on the Pelham Chamber board meeting, May the 11th.
14th.
Quickly, the board is continuing its work with the local Welland Hospital about saving the hospital and rationalizing its overall. I'm sure all of you have been reading. It's a major concern there. And myself and a gentleman by the name of Mr. Paul Leon are working together with the Chamber group, and fascinating discussion, along with NHS and the LIN. The 18th annual auction, as the mayor mentioned, raised $14,000. Fax was the recipient of $4,000, which was a record. The other thing that's interesting, there's an MOU being developed between the Niagara Falls Chambers of Ontario and the Niagara Falls, New York. Now, this would allow us a membership protocol that we could become members, even as part of the Pelham Chamber, that we could attend their meetings and access some of their services. So this is fascinating, and we're going to be watching this, and more details will follow at our June meeting. That's the first time they've ever done that. You've always heard about international borders and trade taking place. The Niagara Falls Chamber of New York is very interested in working with us on that, all of us. Special events business after 5 was held at Primeway. Some of you are familiar. Keith Cummins, the CEO. The annual golf tournament will be held June 9th at the Legends, Niagara Falls. And my second report on Seniors Advisory Committee, I'm pleased we started up again last week on May the 11th. Gail Harrier has assumed the role replacing Judy Reed. Seniors Forum is planned for June the 10th. The key topics will be to follow up on our proceedings of our 2014, not 2104. Sorry. Transportation and senior services, and for the consideration for the proposed community center. Seniors Month is June this month, coming up, and there was some question regarding the community center development and with respect to senior services, and it was referred to staff and myself, and I believe there'll be a follow-up later on. That's my report, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to be part of these two committees.
Thank you very much, Councillor. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that be it resolved the report submitted by Councillor Papp dated May 19th and reporting on the Pelham Chamber of Commerce Board meeting and the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee meeting be received for information. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Papp, for serving on those committees, and thanks to all the members of the community for serving on those committees, especially the Seniors Advisory Committee. Now we'll move to the consideration of the CCS Group Consulting, and Councillor Papp, thank you. He has disclosed a potential conflict of interest regarding this. So as he leaves the chamber, I will read the motion. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the Council receive the issue summary report entitled CCS Group Consulting, and the Council approve the proposal as submitted by CCS Group with an upset limit of $8,500. I think this was late getting to us. Mr. CEO, can you just briefly outline, the attachment I think was late getting to us. Can you outline a little bit more about what the proposed work is?
Some of councillors will recall working with CCS Group prior. Their expertise is navigating the provincial and federal bureaucracies in order to access significant grant opportunities for a variety of different things. In the case of the recreation center, the community center, we have been, as you're aware, lobbying our other levels of government. We've been keeping our eye open for opportunities, and quite simply put, there is very little grant dollars available for new community center construction projects. That was something that was a big focus in the stimulus funding going back a few years. That money apparently is not available anymore, and the focus has switched primarily to roads and water infrastructure, utilities, etc. What we do know is that there is a considerable amount of money available from the federal government in what's called a P3 fund, P3 funding. So P3 is a private-public partnership. The idea is to retain the services of CSS Group to, first of all, set up all of the required sort of fact-finding meetings that we would need to have to see whether or not our project would even qualify. And second of all, they would assist us in the development and submission of the grant application. Because of the scope of this project, it's something that we need some expertise on. Quite frankly, staff just does not have the time or the resources to be able to do this work in this short period of time. It should be noted that the deadline is June 12th, I believe, for the application, so this is something that we would need to be pursuing immediately. There is one other opportunity in the area of the Canada 150th. They have announced some grant funding. Nothing that applies to the community center per se, but what we need to do is have a look at other capital projects that might apply, that we can apply the grant funding for, which would free up cash flow for funding the capital required on the community center. So this is the request of staff. I do have a copy of their proposal. I apologize for not having that available. We'll get that to you right away, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Durley had some questions. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One jumps out, and it deals with the reference to a P3, and it says if there is a P3 partner in brackets, the YMCA, is this being presumptuous? Is this a fact that we need to commit to something in order to look at that? And certainly there has been no commitment whatsoever, at least to my knowledge, that we have a P3 partner in this as yet. We are currently in discussion with a group, and maybe we'll go to other groups as well. However, is it necessary that we name a P3 partner in order to have CCS work for us in this?
That's a good question. One of the things that we need to know is whether or not, for example, the Y would qualify as a private partner. We think they do, but we're not sure. So that's one of the preliminary fact-finding things we need to figure out. So at least as far as asking the questions, would the Y be eligible under the program? We certainly, yes, need to do that. The business case from Leisure Plan and all of the foundational work that we've done on the community center has ruled out a private public partnership with a truly private sector for profit entity. So yes, the focus would be on trying to secure the P3 grant with the YMCA. Again, the business case is predicated on it, as well as the council has already given the approval to begin discussions around the operating agreement, and that's the path that we seem to be going down at this point. So that's the simplest answer I can give.
Thank you.
Does it mean we're committed to an agreement with the Y? No, but we're working on some assumptions that
Yeah.
the Y would be a partner.
Thank you. I'm just going to add to what the CEO said, if you don't mind, Councillor, because I attended a seminar regarding this P3 partnership opportunity at a recent FCM conference. The federal government is keen on promoting P3. CCS believes that the Y could be a partner. But the way the process works is essentially that one makes an application to the program, and they would check off, not CCS, but the federal government, P3 Canada, would check off certain things. Does it meet this criteria, this criteria, this criteria? And CCS would help us to achieve that. And then they would essentially say to you, over the next 9 months, maybe a year, work together. Can somebody tell them again in the hallway? It's difficult to, thank you. Essentially work together and say, let's work on structuring what this would look like as a P3, and if it's a P3. It doesn't mean that it will be, but that it might be. So really it's the start of the discussion and possibly formalizing it to do that. So if, the way I look at it is it's an opportunity as opposed to maybe something that we don't have all the ducks in the row yet, but we would say, look, we're working toward this as a potential, and if it occurs, this is how it would play out. It would be similar if we were the CEO made reference that Leisure Plan is not suggesting a private partner. It would be similar to a situation where one looks at this project and says, we have in mind that we could do it with a private partner. But there's no private partner in mind, there's no that kind of thing. That comes later on. And actually P3 Canada helps the municipality with tendering, helps the municipality secure that partner, etc. So really it's based on what it is that we're planning to do, that P3 Canada would assist the municipality. I hope that provides further clarity and not confusion, but further clarity on it. So it's essentially saying, is this project a potential for a P3, whether that's private or another entity like the Y? If we go down that road, yes or no? Then you work together with P3 Canada to develop what it would look like. The benefit is that there's a potential for 25% funding for the project as a result of this. So they are trying to promote it substantially. So I hope that answers or provides further clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the 30,000 foot level. The things that concern me, the words operating agreement have been issued, and in fact, I would prefer it be proposed because in fact we are given, to my knowledge, and I did read the issue summary report from March 16th, which said we enter into a minutes of understanding, but it doesn't say that we're going to have an operating agreement. And frankly, it's good to know what an operating agreement may look like with the Y and with other groups, because I would like to see some numbers to compare the Y to other options. In fact, we've been told by, and I won't really get into it, some of the information from the Leisure Plan to me was not specific in some answers that deal with it. They're leading us in one direction, not giving us any alternatives. I have a concern with that. So when we look at the words operating agreement, I would like to have a qualifier in there that this is not going to be in any way whatsoever compelling us to get into the agreement. What we're looking at is what it may look like if in fact it does happen, not agreement to operate. That to me is a fine definition that has me greatly concerned.
Okay. Mr. CEO, can you assure the councillor that by approving this, it doesn't mean that we are definitely going to do an operating agreement with the YMCA?
No, it does not mean that at all, Mr. Mayor. Council instruction was to negotiate an operating agreement. Obviously, the operating agreement would have to be approved by council, and council has full authority to say yes or no on that matter. This is to go down a path that we don't know whether or not we even qualify, but a chance to get $12 million in federal government money towards the project, which is at this point the only pot of money available. It's an avenue that we must absolutely explore.
Thank you. I hope that helps, Council.
Explore the operating word. Yes, I'm all for that. Thank you. Explore
Okay.
all you may.
Okay, thank you. Others to this recommendation? Councillor Rybak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some clarity with respect to the fee and the work that we expect to get for the fee. The offset limit of $8,500 for work like this I find to be remarkably reasonable given how much work can go into it. So let me understand what it is that we're asking CCS Consulting to do. Is it just the one application for the P3 grant? Is it all applications that come our way until we hit a limit? Are we paying on piecework? Are we paying by the hour? Just a little bit of clarity around that.
Thank you very much. Madam Treasurer, can you assist us, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The proposal review service is $2,500 towards the assistance with the P3 grant that's due on June the 12th. And then there's $6,000 for a proposed 2-month period, which includes approximately 3 to 4 meetings each month, organized, attended, and facilitated by one of the CCS group consultants. A total of 6 meetings minimum will be secured in the 2-month phase 1 and 2 engagement. And they came to us with a proposal originally that was a longer period of time, and with the risk of losing the grant opportunity, we sent them back to the table and said, we really need to move forward on this grant application, and could you kind of mix the two together and give us something more scaled down? They can provide much more services, obviously, if we need it going forward, if approved by council, but this was the way to get it done currently, and then to help us with other grant application opportunities. One is the Community Improvement Fund, as well as the new fund that just came out, the 150th.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. So as I understand it, 2,500 for the P3 application specifically, all work related to that. And then another 6 meetings, I guess, minimum? 6, perhaps more?
3 to 4 each month.
3 to 4 each month for 2 months, in which I guess the other grant application opportunities will be explored, and I guess the fact finding that goes along with it. There's no statement at the end of that we will have any more applications completed, because of course we may not qualify for any, or maybe that might not be enough time. I don't know. Can you help me with that? What's the product that we're going to get after the next 2 months?
Madam Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The application will be submitted for the P3 proposal. That's one of the things that we're going to get out of it. And then the meetings with the stakeholders they've identified. I do have a copy of the report, and I'll send that to the council right after I'm finished this meeting. And it does detail the types of levels of individuals that they're going to sit down and have discussions with to try and access some funding. We were successful in a previous situation with this group on getting funding using this protocol. And then the application for the community improvement plan, it comes later in the year. So going through this application process, we may or may not need their resources again. We may be fully able to do it on our own after that. And then the 150th was just announced. I just got the email. I haven't really read it to see when that application deadline is. But again, we may be able to use the resources from the first application.
Thank you.
Thank you. That clarifies it for me. This is $8,500 for specifically P3. Then there's a first tranche of work that's going to happen, and there may be potential for more, but then I guess only if there's real potential for filling out applications and maybe getting some granting out to that. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to add to what the treasurer said, and it is in the submission, it says a resubmission of the road development project. So council will remember that we did apply for funding for some of the road work in the East Fawn Hill area. And is it the Line Avenue Road as well? Is that the one that they're talking about, or the East Fawn Hill roads? But to resubmit those applications, Ms.
It was
Pupel?
the project of the $5.4 million that was in the capital budget last year.
Okay. So that will also be some of a resubmission of that work, Councillor, in addition to the meetings and all that as well. Okay? Anything else? Councillor?
I'm going to ask this on behalf of our good friend, Councillor Kersey. So where's the money coming from?
Madam Treasurer?
The money for this would come out of the reserves that would be used to build the community center as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Are you ready for calling the question? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. And if we can invite Councillor Papp back. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have presentation consideration of bylaws. It has been moved by Councillor Ribiak and seconded by Councillor Papp, now that he's back in the room. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. There are 5. Bylaw number 3611 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136 as amended for lands located south of Canberra Road and east of Maple Street, 768 Canberra Road, legally described as 16 part lot 9, from RV1 residential village 1 zone to institutional zone. 2, being a bylaw to appoint the manager of public works as the overall responsible operator for the Pelham water distribution system. 3, being a bylaw to appoint the manager of public works as the overall responsible operator for the Pelham wastewater collection system. 4, being a bylaw to delegate council authority to the Director of Community and Planning and Development for the purpose of decisions on entering into and executing development agreements for a second interim dwelling on one lot. And 5, being a bylaw to authorize Mayor Clerk to enter into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of the Province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the Province of Ontario for the purposes of implementation of the Community Transportation Pilot Grant Program. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We do have some in-camera items, one that we added, but as is our practice, it has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following P&P scheduled for this evening. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We'll now recess this meeting for 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to run then.
Better run. Don't take any chance.